Here after the Colorado Buffalo's second spring practice. Brian, we both got a chance to talk to some coaches, some players after practice today. What were your general takeaways after day 2 of spring ball?
Well, there's a lot of excitement, obviously inside today as opposed to outside, and I think there's a lot of enthusiasm for what's going on in practice. And I chatted with Bo Bichrat, and he said he loves these practices. He goes, they're not even hard because of the off-season conditioning. And I'm sure Tucker doesn't want to hear that they're not hard. They're hard, but because of the off-season conditioning, he said, we're in great shape and things are going well. So I think that's a good thing here. I mean, the thing we keep hearing after 2 practices is how fast these guys are moving, what the tempo is like in practice, and even Tucker, moving around quite a bit. So there's a lot of tempo to practice.
Another thing we keep hearing from the players is the fact that both the new offense and the new defense are going to play off what the other side, what their opponent is doing more so than the last scheme. It's a big adjustment for these guys. If they can wrap their head around it mentally, I mean, it's a huge advantage instead of defensive players calling out your play before it's even snapped, which happened to this offense last year. Right. It sounds like they're going to have more counters than they did at least last year.
Yeah, and it sounds like the coaches are throwing a lot at these guys right away just to see what they can handle and see, can they handle all this stuff? But I think, we talked to Mustafa Johnson the other day, and he mentioned, hey, I'm still slow in trying to learn this, and for some of those guys, it's going to be. But I think ultimately that's a good thing that this team is going to play off what the offense and defense are doing. It feels like it's what you should do. That maybe the previous staff didn't do as well, but we'll see how it works. And I kind of like the philosophy of it so far.
I had a chance to talk to Darian Hagan, and it was interesting talking to him because he's been here as an assistant coach so long. This is the 4th coaching staff he's been a part of, and he said the biggest difference he notices is how encompassing Mel Tucker is from the support staff on down. It's really a team effort approach versus in the past where you really leaned on just those 9 or 10 assistants.
Yeah, and that's kind of I've gotten that vibe from a lot of different people this offseason as well. I mean, academic people have said they've had meetings with him and they've gone really well, and just people throughout the administration that I've talked to said he's been very encompassing, and it's nice to see that. And every coach has its own style, and Hagan, I think of anybody here, Hagan has probably seen more different coaching styles than anybody else.
And in terms of that running back competition, we talked a little bit about it on Monday. It is wide open at this point.
Right.
Jaron Mangum is the real deal, and Darian Hagan said he's going to be a great running back. But he admitted, the pass protection stuff, these high school kids don't have to do that. Certainly being an early enrollee gives him some kind of a chance to maybe win that starting job, but it's going to be a battle there. There's a lot of guys hungry for that spot. Deion Smith, he raved about as well. Even Jarek Broussard, guys that came in hurt last year, Darian Hagan's very high on.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent, and talking with somebody last night close to the program and saying the same thing, that hey, there's not a lot of experience, but there's a lot of talent here. I mean, they're excited about a lot of these guys, and even a guy like Joe Davis is young. Maybe it's a year or 2 before he gets on the field, but they're excited about these people. These kids coming in. Jarek, Deion Smith, Bo Bichrat, who I talked to today. We talked a little bit about it the other day, but he hasn't had a lot of opportunities in his last couple of years. But this offense, I think, he mentioned it to me. He goes, "This offense suits my style better than the previous offense." And Tucker talks about big backs. Bichrat, is he a guy? And so I think there's 4 or 5 different options that we might see different running backs this year.
We hadn't even mentioned Alex Fontenot in that mix.
That's
he was
right,
the star of last year's spring. You also talked to Jay Johnson, new offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. What was your takeaway from that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I like him a lot. I mean, very knowledgeable guy. He's been around a lot of different places, and he mentioned, we talked about the offense a little bit more, and he said, we're going to be very mixed and multiple with the offense, and talked to him about there's so many different ways to do offense, and obviously a guy like Mike Leach that's an air raid guy, right? Stanford and David Shaw, that's the ground and pound type offense. But Jay kind of likes pulling things from different offenses, and hey, what can we do here and there? And he mentioned that they're throwing a lot at the quarterbacks right now just to see what can Steven handle, what can Tyler, what can Sam, what can these guys handle. He's been very impressed with the guys. Steven especially, he said he's been very impressive and can obviously play, loves his running style, and liked a lot of things he did last season. So I think there's some good things. It's all sounds good this time of year anyway, but I like what Jay Johnson brings to this offense.
The other guy I talked to was Davion Taylor. He's not running track again this year. That's because of later spring practices. It would have just been tough. He'd be practicing twice a day. And this is a guy that has NFL potential. It's just crazy to think he never played high school football, had a walk-on at a JC, and now he's a potential NFL guy. He's actually in the DB meeting rooms now. He was with the Buff backers last year, kind of splitting time between safeties and outside backer. He's still going to be used as a linebacker at times, but you even heard Mel Tucker say that he's a guy that they're going to kind of move around and not necessarily the buff backer role, but a guy that's versatile.
Yeah, and you like that. I mean, that's kind of, it's sort of what they did with Evan Worthington a little bit. I mean, they didn't put him in the linebacker, but they moved Evan around a little bit, especially 2 years ago. And I think Davion is that type of athlete, maybe even a better athlete than Evan. And I think the more you can get Davion moving around, I love the way he played last year. He got better as the season went along. He's bigger now, too. I think he's up to about 225, 230. So if he can play that safety role, we know they need depth at safety. And so if he can play that role, I think that's huge for this defense.
All right, that wraps up day 2 of spring practices Friday. They're actually going to let us in here, so that'll be exciting. We'll have a report after their only open practice to the media on Friday.